10 minutes prior to the fire dragon's awakening, the Shield Guild had captured a fire dragon hatchling. The director expressed his annoyance, acknowledging that it was still a fire dragon despite being a hatchling. Darim asked for a plan to lure Kim Kaibong out. The director proposed a simple plan: killing the hatchling to wake up the fire dragon. The government would then send special forces to buy time and ultimately send Team Kim Kaibong to manage the situation. Darim questioned how they would deal with the angry fire dragon after dealing with Kaibong, and the director revealed their plan to seal the dragon using a day stone. The director explained that experiments in Saudi Arabia had revealed something useful. Namely that they could use the day stone to induce the dragon to enter another period of slumber. Darim delivered the killing blow to the hatchling while laughing and approving of the plan. The civilians noticed the sky turning red and the army arrived as news outlets reported an emergency situation and urged citizens to evacuate to nearby underground bunkers due to the government's declaration of martial law. During an interview with a professor, he explained that a great disaster was imminent, citing a similar case in Russia where they sealed a dungeon by dropping countless nuclear warheads on it. However, this approach was not feasible in Incheon, a city with inhabitants. The people were frightened and remembered what happened a decade ago. Sungri Yang cursed the Shield Guild and demanded that the National Intelligence Service be contacted to locate them. She also inquired about the president's whereabouts and was told that the president had already evacuated to the underground bunker and given her full power. She sighed, knowing that it was her responsibility. They arrived near the dungeon and she ordered to send an emergency notice to every guild master and to summon the top 100 players of the nation. Kaibong and his team arrived at the entrance of the dungeon where the members were scared, knowing that they were just pawns to buy time. However, Kong Wei was excited to see the dungeon. The vice captain asked Kaibong if they would let Kong Wei join them and Kaibong agreed, thinking he might be useful. As they entered the dungeon, only Kaibong and Kong Wei managed to enter the dungeon as the others were rejected. Kaibong was surprised to see that Kong Wei managed to enter. Darim appeared and immediately attacked Kaibong, who was surprised by Darim's speed. Kaibong activated his body enhancement skill to block the attack but was surprised when he was injured and the system informed him that his defense had been ignored. The emergency notice reached top players outside the dungeon, including 4th-ranked Chien Yubin, 99th-ranked Yui, and others. Kaibong was confused by his injury and Darim showed disappointment towards him. Kaibong noticed Darim's Shield Guild tattoo, sighed, and said that he had no time for him since his priority was to stop the fire dragon. Kaibong was attacked by Darim and sustained damage, provoking Kaibong to attempt to finish the fight quickly. He attacked, destroying the area, but was left kneeling and confused about what happened. Meanwhile, the director observed from afar and laughed. Sungri Yang arrived at the entrance of the dungeon and asked the vice captain about Kaibong's whereabouts. The vice captain explained that they couldn't enter due to the fire dragon's barrier. Sungri Yang checked that barrier and found that it was not created by the fire dragon but by the Shield Guild in an attempt to kill Kaibong. Kaibong and Darim's battle continued, with Kaibong taking constant damage. Meanwhile, the director revealed that the vice guild master possessed the light dragon's fang, a powerful weapon obtained from a 7-star dungeon. Despite its size, the weapon was incredibly lightweight and sharp enough to cut through any metal. The weapon was also said to be enchanted with numerous spells, including the famous Reflect spell. Kaibong learned from the system about the light dragon fang's reflect ability and realized that he was hurting himself with his own attacks. He was impressed by the weapon's power. Darim attacked and wounded Kaibong. However, Kaibong brushed off the injury and asked Darim to give him the weapon, saying that it would be ideal for his subordinates. Darim was surprised to see that Kaibong seemed unfazed by all the damage he had taken. Kaibong attributed his ability to withstand the damage to having more blood than most people. However, the system pointed out that a significant portion of the damage he received was self-inflicted and teasingly laughed at Kaibong. Kaibong scolded the system for providing the information too late and called it useless. Kaibong's response angered Darim, causing him to attack. Kaibong retaliated, but the reflect ability caused him to take damage as well. Darim was shocked by Kaibong's power, evidenced by the destruction caused by their clash. Kaibong boasted about the strength of his attacks and decided to test the limit of the sword's reflectability. The fire dragon was attacking the barrier, causing concern among the other members of the Shield Guild. However, the director assured them that breaking the barrier of an 8-star dungeon from the inside is not an easy feat and that they still have time until the dungeon breaks. The director knew that the dungeon barrier was getting weaker despite his earlier assurance to the Shield members. He acknowledged the strength of the 8-star boss monster and felt that they might need to use the Day Stone earlier than planned. He expressed his hope that the Vice Master would finish off Kaibong before the situation worsens. During Kaibong and Darim's battle, someone approached the director and it turned out to be Kong Wei. The Shield Guild members recognized him as Kaibong's ally and chased after him. Despite taking damage from the Light Dragon Fang's reflect spell, Kaibong kept attacking. Darim taunted him, believing that the weapon could reflect any physical attacks. Darim advised Kaibong to give up, but Kaibong persisted with his attacks. Suddenly, Darim started to stumble, and Seongri-yang felt the tremors of the battle from outside. She considered breaking the barrier forcefully but was reminded by one of her subordinates that as South Korea's commander-in-chief, leaving her post could lead to the raid's failure and the nation's downfall. Seongri-yang reluctantly agreed and stopped. Darim was relieved to see Kaibong stop his attacks, but Kaibong urged him to keep blocking and continued his assault. Eventually, Darim fell to his knees and began coughing up blood. Confused about how he took damage, he then noticed a crack in his sword. Kaibong told him to keep blocking and pressed on with his attacks, causing even more damage and destroying the sword before pummeling Darim into the ground. The fight came to an end with Kong Wei witnessing Kaibong's victory, and the pursuing Shield members left in surprise. Kaibong regretfully picked up the broken sword, and the director was also amazed since Darim was one of the top 3 players in South Korea. The Shield Guild used to act without repercussions due to their strength, but Kaibong's triumph shattered that logic. The director observed Darim's defeat and gave the order for the Shield members to withdraw, instructing them to use their return stones. One of the members expressed concern about not using the Day Stone to seal the dragon. The director responded by explaining that even if the top 100 rankers in South Korea were to participate in the raid, the chances of success would still be low, and many of the top rankers were members of the Shield Guild. He decided to wait and arrive at the climax of the battle to use the Day Stone during a decisive moment. The director stated that although the plan had deviated from the original, the outcome was still the same. They would be seen as the heroes who protected the country from the fire dragon. This would make it difficult for even the Prime Minister to condemn them, even if she discovered the truth. The director commanded the Shield members to retreat, leaving Darim behind. One of the members hesitated, but the director ordered him to retrieve Darim in front of Kaibong. The Shield members exited the dungeon, and Kong Wei asked Kaibong if they would pursue them, but Kaibong insisted that their priority was the fire dragon. The fire dragon continued its attack on the barrier, while Seongri-yang was informed that the damage to the barrier was already at 89%. And there were only 5 minutes left until the dungeon break. People outside the dungeon saw the fire dragon, and Seongri-yang assumed that the Shield Guild had already killed Kaibong and removed the barrier. However, they later noticed that Kaibong and Kong Wei were still inside. Meanwhile, the TV crew spotted a person on the ground and identified it as Park Darim of the Shield Guild. Seongri-yang was surprised by Kaibong's strength in defeating Darim and tried to contact him, but was informed that the dungeon's radio interference was preventing communication. The dragon attacked the barrier once again, and the damage rate reached 97%. Seongri-yang realized that they needed to delay the dungeon break to prevent the fire dragon from getting out of the dungeon and putting the entire country in danger. She looked at the gathered players and estimated that there were only around 30 of them, not enough to face the dragon. She believed they needed at least 80 of the top 100 rankers to be ready for the battle. After being informed that Kaibong had been contacted, it was Kong Wei who picked up the earpiece first, but Kaibong eventually took over and spoke with Seongri-yang. She inquired about his condition, to which he replied that it was tolerable, and then asked for further instructions. She reluctantly asked for more time, knowing that it meant risking his life. He agreed to Seongri-yang's request and hung up. The reporters observed that the people inside the dungeon were moving closer to the fire dragon. An official raised concerns about Kaibong's actions, but Seongri-yang intervened, stating that Kaibong represented South Korea's future and hope, and that she had just ordered him to sacrifice himself for all of them. Kaibong approached the fire dragon despite his low health, using his skill. However, his health was constantly decreasing due to bleeding from his previous fight. The system recommended that he take a break. But Kaibong couldn't leave as it would put his mother in danger. The system suggested escaping overseas with his mother, but Kaibong called it trash. Kong Wei asked Kaibong if they were really going to fight the fire dragon. Kaibong confirmed that they would. Kong Wei expressed his doubts about their chances of winning. Suddenly, the fire dragon launched an attack, breathing fire and destroying the surrounding area. Kong Wei used his shield to block the attack. Kaibong was impressed with the skill and asked about it. But before Kong Wei could explain, the dragon attacked him, sending him flying. After Kong Wei landed unconscious, the dragon turned its attention to Kaibong and launched an attack. Kaibong managed to dodge, but the dragon followed up with a tail strike, which Kaibong caught with one arm. However, this worsened his wounds and caused his health to drop to 7%. Despite this, Kaibong pushed the tail back and retaliated with an attack, striking the dragon's head. It fell to the ground, but Kaibong's health continued to decrease to 4% due to the recoil from his attacks. He charged at the dragon, but it breathed fire at him. Kaibong dodged the attack, realizing that he couldn't take it due to his low health, but he noticed that the dragon's attack was heading to the barrier, which was already at its limit. Xiangriyang ordered everyone to run away. But Kong Wei arrived and blocked the attack. Although he landed hard on the ground, Kong Wei was happy that he managed to stop the dragon's attack. After praising Kong Wei for his contribution, Kaibong turned his attention back to defeating the fire dragon. As the dragon prepared a powerful attack, Kaibong also prepared his own and charged towards the beast. With a powerful strike, Kaibong was able to defeat the fire dragon and clear the 8-star dungeon known as the Fire Dragon's Nest. As a reward, Kaibong obtained a unique skill known as the First Dragon Slayer, which increases his damage against draconic monsters. Kaibong received a warning from the system that his health had dropped to 3% and advised him to get healed. Kong Wei arrived, bragging about how he had blocked the dragon's attack. Kaibong became irritated by both the system and Kong Wei's constant pestering. Kaibong noticed something on the dragon's corpse, its dragon heart, which was an immense energy source. Since Kaibong killed the fire dragon before it could expend all of its energy, there was an excess amount of energy left within its body. The fire dragon's body exploded, and Sangryong was surprised along with the people outside. She was then informed that all the rankers, except for those affiliated with the Shield Guild, had arrived, and the army was ready to provide support. With her weapon out, she decided it was time to destroy the barrier, but it suddenly disappeared. Concerned for Kaibong, she rushed inside and saw the destruction. She called out for Kaibong, but found Kong Wei emerging from the rubble. When she asked about Kaibong's whereabouts, Kong Wei pointed to where he was leaning against a wall. Sangryong approached Kaibong and commended him for a job well done. At the Shield Guild building, the director was informed that the Fire Dragon's Nest dungeon had been cleared, but he walked away without answering questions about their next move. It was reported that the Fire Dragon's Nest was cleared by one person from the Department of Defense. Additionally, the Vice Guildmaster of the Shield Guild, Park Darim, and his entourage were arrested by the Prime Minister for causing the Fire Dragon crisis, and all members of the Shield Guild will be charged with treason and receive severe punishments. The main perpetrator of the Fire Dragon crisis, the Shield Guild's director James Lee, is missing and wanted by the government. Sangryong was at a conference where reporters asked for comments on recent events. Sangryong responded by stating that the details had already been made public and suggested that the reporters were more interested in a particular individual involved in the incident. She then introduced Kim Kaibong, who was nervous facing the press. Kaibong and Kong Wei met with June, who praised them for clearing the Fire Dragon's Nest. While Kong Wei was excited about the praise, Kaibong asked about the people behind June. June then referred to Kaibong as the hero who saved the country and mentioned that people show a lot of interest in heroes. Kong Wei was also praised and was excited to learn that he already had a fan club. Kaibong interrupted Kong Wei's excitement and inquired about their purpose for meeting June. June revealed that they were there for a physical examination, explaining that at the time of Kaibong's enlistment, the appropriate equipment was not available to record his scores in the headquarters database. When Kim Kaibong joined the military, there was no proper equipment available to measure his abilities and he couldn't take the official examination. As a result, he didn't have a rank in the military's database and could remain relatively anonymous. However, if his rank had been determined and uploaded, the Shield Guild would not have made such a big mistake. Kaibong was eager to begin the physical examination. But June informed him that they were still waiting for their host. Yui arrived and greeted Kaibong, and they started the examination with a grip strength machine that could measure up to S rank. Yui went first and got an A rank, then it was Kaibong's turn. June instructed him to clench as hard as he could, and though he was doubtful, she assured him that the machine's materials were tested by Gu Xiangriyang and wouldn't break easily. However, to everyone's surprise, the machine was destroyed when Kaibong exerted his strength. June was confused. And Kong Wei felt bad as he also wanted to take the test. The punching machine was also destroyed, and Kaibong overloaded the magic power measuring machine. Kang Wei regretted not going before Kaibong. Kaibong apologized, and Yui comforted Jun and suggested proceeding with the interview. The interview began, with Yui requesting to introduce themselves to the audience of over 100,000 people. Kang Wei was surprised and looked around for the audience, while Kaibong brought him back to his seat. Yui asked if Kang Wei's reaction was genuine, and Kaibong confirmed that it was. Kaibong then introduced himself as the captain of the Special Dungeon Management Team, and stayed at his age, 30 years old, after hesitating for a moment. Yui was surprised that Kaibong was older than she expected. Kang Wei claimed that Kaibong was older than he claimed, which led to Kaibong hitting him. Yui then asked Kaibong about how he became so strong, and why he decided to work for the government. Jun knew the answer: it was for revenge and his mother. Kaibong then shared his story and mentioned his family, which made Yui emotional and cry. The public assumed that Yui had also lost someone due to the monsters, while Yui's family watched and questioned her behavior. Her mother was angry, stating that they were still alive, while her father tried to calm her down. The interview ended, and Kang Wei regretted not being able to contribute to the conversation. Kaibong asked if their tasks were complete, but Yun hesitated to confirm, saying that Yui would handle the next task. Kaibong expressed his preference for dealing with the dungeon, instead of wasting time on non-essential tasks. Yun assured him that the next task would be helpful in finding a way to end the madness, fulfilling her promise to assist Kaibong. Kaibong initially thought Yun's words were just empty promises, but Yun insisted that she's been working hard to reach their goal. Kaibong then asked for the details of his next task. Yun led Kaibong and Kang Wei to a facility where different materials were being tested. Kang Wei seemed excited about the place. Yun explained that there are many aspects about dungeons that can't be explained with physics today, but researchers have come to understand more and more characteristics. She said that to understand a certain phenomenon properly, they must first comprehend the energy. Yun went on to explain that they've researched where the dungeon's energy comes from and how it's preserved. She said that if someone can control that energy, they'll most likely be able to control the dungeon, and they'll finally have a small solution. Kaibong asked if that meant they could control the dungeons, but Yun said they haven't gotten that far yet. Yun directed Kaibong's attention to a crystal, which was later confirmed by the system as a fragment of a daystone. To Yun's surprise, Kaibong seemed to have knowledge about it. Yun then informed Kaibong that their next task with Yui involved exploring a dungeon that potentially contains a daystone. Kaibong was taken aback by this revelation and asked if it was possible to know this in advance. This surprised him as he had only encountered a single daystone despite clearing countless dungeons and defeating tons of boss monsters. Yun explained that they were able to make predictions about the daystone thanks to the remains of the fire dragon. They believed it could possibly help control dungeons. Kaibong asked why he had to explore the dungeon with Yui instead of doing it on his own. Yun explained that 3A class or higher players were needed to activate the dungeon, but it wasn't an emergency so they couldn't recruit many players. She also mentioned that involving a large guild could lead to confidential information being leaked. Kaibong concluded that Yui must be trustworthy enough to accompany him. Yun confirmed the trustworthiness of the third member of the mission, who was close to the Prime Minister, and explained that all members were trustworthy. She also informed Kaibong that Yui had permission from the Prime Minister to continue using her personal channel. Yun received a call from Yui and they agreed to meet with the team. Kang Wei expressed his desire to join the mission, but Kaibong pointed out that he couldn't because there can only be 3 people inside at a time. Despite Kaibong pointing to the counter in the dungeon barrier, Kang Wei persisted in his desire to join the mission as the third member. Soon after, Yui, who was already live streaming, and Cheon Yubin, the leader of the Hoa Rang Guild, arrived. Cheon Yubin introduced himself to Kaibong. Like and subscribe if you want me to continue the next chapters, and thank you for watching.